Hi, guys. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited today, and I've got lots of notes for our guest that we're bringing on. He is such a joyful being, and I can't wait for you to meet him. I have just a little intro. I want to tell you a bit about him before I bring him on. He calls himself, I call him just happiness in a person. This is how I see him. But he calls himself a relentless optimist. And I love that so much. Stay with me because sometimes just pure optimism can be bypassing, but that's not what's happening here. This gentleman is living his values so deeply. It's so exciting for me to bring him on as a guest, and I know you're going to love him. So, just a couple of quick points. He is the founder of an event company, but not just any event company. His mission, one of them, and they're all aligned, which is why I love him. He's definitely leading with love, is to create events that are legendary, and what he defines that as is happiness. He's in the business of happiness, and I love that so much. He's a keynote speaker. He has worked with so many universities and companies. I just jotted a few people down. Like with his events company, he's worked with artists like Chainsmokers and Marshmello and DNCE and Steve Aoki, and he's done events for MIT and Harvard and all these incredible universities and venues. And his company is expanding all the time, yet he sticks to his mission. He says the most beautiful, gracious yeses and nos, and he's a pilot, last but never least, and he brings that sense of passion and adventure into all the tech and weaves it so beautifully. This is a longer intro than what I usually do, but he has, this gentleman, this beautiful combination of mind and heart that he embodies and brings into his life, and he's now about to bring it to you. So I won't keep you waiting any longer. I'm going to bring on Mr. Bobby Dutton.
Hi, Shauna. Thanks so much. You can just keep introducing me. This is great.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It really is. And thank you for being here. Actually, I will. I have made some notes because I was checking out your testimonials from your keynote speakers and from people that you've worked with and for. And even there in your testimonials, I see this beautiful weaving that you have done between, how should we say, the, intangibles like joy and happiness. And, people say things about you like impactful, engaging, inspiring, infectious, warm
Ooh,
hearted, all these beautiful things. But then they also share that you gave them these tips and ideas that were actionable, practical, leadership strategies. I'm really checking my notes because, as I said, I made a lot for this conversation today. Adaptability, resilience. You're teaching this beautiful blend, and it's also who you are, of the kind of mind and heart.
very much. I went to school for engineering, and my dad was an engineer, so I'm very much numbers and math and how things work and cause and effect and physics and science. And yet, all of that stuff is nothing if you don't do something interesting with that information. So that's definitely where I thrive is right at that intersection of understanding something technical, but then doing something worthwhile with it.
Yeah, it's the intersection. I even wrote down, I have notes that say passion plus impact, creativity plus precision, just all these things that you combine. You even have events where there are DJs and artists. I think you call them hybrid events. Even there, you're blending tech and flow,
Yes,
right? Tech
exactly.
and creativity. And it's just so, I love that about you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I actually wanted to read, I'm going to say that probably a lot today because it really
Okay.
is. Um, there is an intro sentence on your website that I'm going to read for you guys in the audience because it speaks a lot to who Bobby is and how he shows up and what we're about to dive into today. He says, "It is a gift to feel happy, productive, and purpose driven and busy, but busy in the right way." And I got shivers on that. I want to show people a new perspective, a new way to think that can change your life. That's really beautiful. It oh God, I love, just have so many notes. I love it. So let me start here then. I was watching a video that you did, a speech that you did, and you were talking about flow state. And
Yeah.
speaking of this balance where you had on one side on your display or your your notes that the for the audience the slide, I guess, was, beauty and art and passion and adventure and curiosity. And then the
Yes.
other, of course, was the tech and, coding and engineering and data. And right in that sweet spot is that flow state. And someone in the audience actually put up their hand and they said, "That's what you were born to do." And you were like, "Yeah, exactly. That's it." And
Yeah.
it reminded me of the Japanese concept of ikigai, which I'm sure you've heard of, where it's
Yes.
like the secret, supposedly to long and happy life and joyful life. And in the middle is what you're meant to do. So now I'm going to send it over to you with that very long question. Speak to that in whatever way you would like to.
Absolutely. I mean, flow state is such a cool way to define this happy intersection, because I think, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a manager, I've got a lot of tasks on my plate. I've got a lot to do. My calendar can be overwhelming at times. And I think there's a misconception that hustling is what we're supposed to be doing. And I think that's really wrong. I think hustling is part of the journey sometimes, and we need to learn to approach that with an open mind and embrace the hustle and be proud of what we achieved during the hustle. But I don't ever think you should think of hustling as the goal, the target. Because if you're setting out to be stressed all the time, good news is you can achieve it really easily.
Yeah.
Most people feel stressed
Yeah.
all the
Oh,
time.
stressed. Okay, done.
Yeah. But I think it's like there's become this normality of, if I don't feel stressed or busy or frazzled or overwhelmed, people are going to think I'm not doing anything. And then I'm wasting opportunity, or not contributing to society or the community. And I think, yes, you need to be able to survive the hustle and get through it in a positive and productive way. But the thing that people don't ever ask is, what are we hustling for, and what happens when we've done it successfully? Because it's the other side of the hustle that you should be focused on. That's where your eyes are on the prize. So,
Right. Well, and also we all know, right? We've had a chance, especially in the last few years, to really focus on, or if we choose to, what really
mhm,
matters. And that's something that I want to get into today because I know you're big on that and you live your values. Um,
definitely.
but that hustle and grind culture, and you and I both deal a lot with that, I'm sure, because we're just interacting in the business world. You can see it everywhere. And ultimately it's exhausting and it's draining, and it's, if you're not even hustling and grinding for the right things, then you don't have happiness or joy, or you don't have that life force, you're just exhausted all the time. What's the point of that?
Right. And when you're in that flow state feeling, which I think we've all felt before, but maybe had trouble articulating, if somebody asked you how you were doing when you are in flow state, the last thing you would say is busy. You would say,
Right.
I'm thriving. I'm doing what I was
Like, I'm
born to do.
amazing.
I want to do this forever. I don't need to eat or sleep or breathe. I just need to continue being here because this is what I was born to do. And that's such a lucky thing. Now, the engineering mind in me says, okay, that's important and it's interesting and I've felt that and I love it and I want to pursue that. But what is it? How do we define it in more tangible terms? And
Right.
there's a great TED talk called "Flow: The Secret to Happiness," and it's defined as being highly challenged in an area that you're highly skilled. So
Right.
high skill, high challenge equals flow, and that's
Right.
really helpful to me because it's so specific. So
Yeah, it's
if
like a
you're
very simple
feeling
anchor to remember it.
exactly, and I think, as much as I wish everyone felt flow state every day, I don't think that's the case. I think most people tend to be on the anxiety side, which is you're too challenged and not skilled enough to be in flow state there,
Oh, good
which
point.
means which is a relatable feeling, but at least that says, okay, I don't need more challenge, I need more skill. I need to either develop my skills in this space if I'm going to stay here, or I need to get somewhere else where I'm able to experience high
Where there's
skill
that
as well
balance.
as high challenge.
Oh,
Exactly.
that is fascinating. I was going to touch on that a little later, but I'm going to pull up my note because you just said something that reminded me. You said, bear with me. You said one of the things that you help people do is rise above stress and conquer busyness syndrome. And you were talking about prioritizing versus multitasking, and
Mm,
that when you prioritize, and I'm going to throw in there, which you already do, with your values, right? You're
Yeah.
prioritizing what matters to you. You said organize the influx, prioritize it based on your values, and then focus on one thing at a time.
Yes, that's the key.
Because there's so much input. There's
Yeah.
so much input.
Way
So
too much.
this is something you are helping people do. I can hear it in your confidence and your voice that you've got this sweet spot of prioritizing versus multitasking.
Absolutely.
So you want to keep speaking to that because it's really great.
Sure. Well, like you said, we've got tons of influx of stuff. Now, a lot of it is important. It's things we definitely need to consider and give some of our intention to and resolve and respond. But I would argue that a lot of it's not useful. A lot of people watching this look down at your phone and how many notifications have vibrated your leg to say, hey, if you buy Uber Eats right now, you can save
30%
15%.
off or 15.
Yeah. And listen, that's a great value and I do want it. But just even allowing that to vibrate my leg and giving it the half a second it takes me to clear that notification later, that's enough to derail a perfect focused flow.
Right.
And I don't want it. And I had to spend a lot of time really proactively pruning that influx and saying, you know what, Uber Eats, yeah, I want the deal and I want to be able to find that when I need to order food because that's going to save me some money and that's great. But I can't have you interrupting my day on your terms just because this sale now exists. And when I started to really call out each of those things and saying, okay, I got a notification I don't want. This doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
Not only do I ignore it, but how do I make sure this doesn't happen next time? And this is kind of backwards because now I have to go into my Uber Eats notification settings. And now I'm spending more time on more of a task, but the next 100 times my leg would have vibrated for that reason, I'm going to stay focused. And doing that same phase of filtering out that stuff, whether it's stuff you're getting on your inbox, spam, junk mail, or anything else. Now, I still have a lot to deal with, but all those things are valid. So that I've now cut out half of the stuff that was fighting for my attention without even doing anything except making it go away.
Right, but you did something really important. You de-escalated things in importance because they feel urgent, right? Those little notifications, they're supposed to. They're meant to. The algorithm designs it that way. Those little ding, it's a hit, it's a dopamine hit, and they know it. And whoever designs the apps and all the things for you to want to look and have FOMO and feel like you're missing out, but actually you're doing yourself a disservice because then you're scattered, your mind is scattered, your nervous system is scattered, and you're not focused. Therefore, you're not moving the needle on what's important to you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting being on the other side of that because I have taken that proactive step. Now I'm able to see the difference of my own ability to stay in the zone versus everyone else who's getting knocked out of it constantly. And there's a pride point there, and that helps me stay motivated to keep being productive. Because now, when we finish this call, I'll look at my calendar and I'll see what the next thing I've decided to do on my terms was. And if I choose to look at my phone or open my inbox, that's okay. But again, on my terms.
It's a choice.
Yes.
A conscious choice. It's not a reaction, like an almost
Yes.
unconscious Pavlovian, oh, I got to look at that. You've made that choice ahead
Exactly.
of time. So
Yes.
the more focused you are, the more focused you can be, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. You get this
Would you agree with that?
compound exponential increase in focus and productivity. And again, that doesn't mean that lets us hustle more as an end. That just means we get to be more intentional about what we do with our time and energy.
And you may be hustling or busy, but as you said, it's busy in the right way. So it's things that you value, it's things that are important to you. It is things that are moving the needle towards what you want or what your clients want. And gosh, I have so many beautiful questions for you. I love everything you're saying. I feel like what you're doing when you're bringing this balance in is helping people actually have an optimum or optimal human experience without all the fluff, like thrive.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. And to be able to see that and nurture it and define it has been really rewarding. And I think it's fascinating to see what happens once you get through all that hustle and all that intentionality and all that filtering. Because this Saturday, for example, I've got one of the first slow days on my calendar I've had in a long time,
Woohoo!
which is great.
Yeah.
And I will wake up and I'll look at the calendar just to double check, and it'll say nothing. And my inbox will be under control and all that can
Mm.
wait. And to have that gift you mentioned earlier, to actually say, what do I want to do today? What do I
Mm-hmm.
choose to do today? Where do I want to go mentally, physically, and with whom? And to be able to make all those choices instead of constantly reacting to being buried in these demands from
Right.
others.
Putting out fires or whatever the case might be that people who are stressed and always reacting are doing.
Yeah.
And so you leave space in your calendar to follow those energetic hits or your intuition or just whatever you might desire. Because when we're always busy, we can't do that either, right? We
No.
can't hear our inner voice. We can't be quiet and just be. And that sounds like what your Saturday is going to be like.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, it sounds
but
really exciting.
but I've got some fun stuff going on between now and then too, and each day is going to be the perfect day in its own way,
Of
and that's
course.
okay.
Of course. You know, I want to take you back in a couple of different threads in your life. So I think I'm going to start with your events company
Okay.
because one of the things that I love the most, too, actually, in what I have learned about you and your events company, things that you and I have talked about before today, um, one is that you created something called the Ethos Tour. They both have to do with you being in the business of happiness, right? And so one of the things that you do very intentionally, speaking of choosing what matters and being very curious about that and living by those values, you and your team sit down. This is the second thing every week, and you go around in a circle and you ask everyone what's bringing them happiness right now. And it reinforces your mission and it just like recalibrates all of you to what you're already about, but bringing it front and center. So then you go do the tasks and then you do whatever those, fulfillments might be for your clients. But you're making a choice ahead of time that this is what you're up to. And so
Yeah,
I'd love to hear about the Ethos Tour and what happened during the lockdowns and how you got into the events business and all of that, because I know how deeply you live this value.
sure. Yeah, so the what got me to the events business in the first place is worth mentioning because it's very in line with who I am and what we've talked about so far, which is I want to create this emotional impact. I want to pursue this flow state in an interesting and unique way. And I'm an engineer nerd that likes to push buttons and understand how things work. And the first thing that made that all make sense to me, my first one of my first flow state experiences was learning how to be a DJ. Because I've got all the music in the world literally at my fingertips, and I can learn how to combine it to create something new and yet familiar. And then I can use that to be part of a show and build around it all kinds of visuals as a way to really build an experience that matters to people. And so for 10 years, we did a branded tour with a new mission, a new theme, just to kind of get at the idea of what are we trying to accomplish here and why is it timely? Why does it matter to people? And the what matters is the question that drove the Ethos Tour. Ethos means the personality, the collective personality of a huge group of people. So you're trying to get to know people as a group rather than individuals, and that gets to the ties that bring us together and the value
Mm-hmm.
of shared experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
that's important. And as we were getting into the concert industry, it was a really interesting problem because if you think about the way you're able to listen to music these days, it's amazing. You can find any song you want
Yeah.
for free, and
Mm-hmm.
it sounds great on your headphones or in your car. And so you have all the music in the world. And so, why should anyone pay me or my team or an artist to come to a specific place to perform that in front of you if it's only going to be a lesser version of the recorded one I heard on the way over here in the car?
I mean,
And
I would
that's a
say it's a better version, but yeah, I get it.
well, it
Yeah, what
depends.
what what makes it about? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I mean, it's and so yes, experiencing it together with people
Mm,
in a way that's more powerful is better. And so getting into again, like how do we make it sound better, knowing that we're competing with the car sound system or your headphones? How do we
hmm.
build audio that hits different? How do we make bass that vibrates you in a way that's emotionally good? And how do you create this experience that really is a group experience rather than 10,000 individual experiences happening in the same room? And that's where we took a step back, like you said, and really got into the question of asking what matters, like what's important to you. And this is something we all need to ask ourselves more, because otherwise you just run the risk of treading water in your inbox and fighting through all those notifications all day without ever really getting to choose what you want to spend your energy on. And so we put out a survey to everyone we could reach and just said what matters. And it was a deliberately broad question. We didn't say what matters musically or what's the best way to go to a concert. We just said what matters, and it was fascinating to see what came
Oh,
back.
it's a really
And
broad question.
yeah, and some of it, of course, was really easy to address in a concert design approach. Some of it wasn't, but it was still important to understand that because, as you mentioned, our product is not concerts. Our
Right.
product is happiness.
It's
And
joy,
so
it's
we
happiness.
need to
Yes.
understand what people think they need. And yeah, to frame our meetings, and we've done this every week for over 20 years, just to start the meeting in the space of things that are bringing you joy. It builds the context, completely changes the meeting. Instead of saying, we don't have enough power in the gym to get our generator to do the lights. Stop, stop, stop. Yes, we need to solve that. And we will. We've done it before and we'll do it again. But first I want to know what's
Yeah.
what's what's
Focus on
driving you
what
today.
matters.
Yeah. And
The
that
other stuff
that
we'll deal with.
yeah, and it helps reconnect us with the mission. It helps us see the humans we're trying to serve internally and externally. And it also makes any interaction that has any negativity feel like the outlier. And
Oh,
that's
beautiful.
been an important thing too in concerts in particular.
Wow.
Because when you picture people working on concerts, you might picture the roadies that are, haven't had a day off or a shower in a couple of days, and they're
Oh,
abused and underpaid and they're stressed, and they do amazing work and they're proud of it, but it's hard to see any real sustainable deep rooted happiness in them. And that's real. That's a condition that's happened in this
undoubtedly.
industry. But when we see that person, because we work with so many different companies, sometimes we'll see that person enter the room. But like I said, that's now the outlier. Everyone's happy, everyone's purpose driven. And I'll literally approach that person and talk to them and just help them notice that this is about happiness and that's more important than whatever's bringing them down. And let's show them that they're in a safe space where happiness and work can happen and the concert can be amazing. And if you can feel happiness in that purpose and in that shared work
Mm-hmm.
experience, it's just as important internally as it is to the audience.
Beautiful. So you're taking the ethos as this overall umbrella, but there's an example of the embodiment of happiness as a value and connection as a value, because that's your individual interactions with beings. And I know because I, really was looking into what you do, that you do think about the experience when you're talking about delivering happiness of the performers and the audience and attendees, whatever the event might be, and everybody who is behind the scenes making it happen. And so where possible, you are considering all the people, all the beings involved, and the whole interconnected experience, and not just the audience or not just the performers.
Absolutely, and it's neat to apply that as widely as possible. I used to go into these conversations with the objective. This is the relentless optimism part, but
All right.
knowing I need this project to be a win-win-win-win-win. So if
Hmm.
there's anyone that's losing because of the project we're trying to develop here, we need to figure that out. And an example of that is, okay, sometimes you've got a headlining artist and you've got a sound company and you've got the student leaders, but maybe you're in an athletics facility and the athletics director's annoyed that you're going to make a mess of this venue. I want to
Just to
know
pick a
that.
scenario, I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah, and I want to go to that athletics director and say, I think you're the only person that this might be affecting negatively, and I want to see if we can fix that. And
Wow.
I've had scenarios where I'll say, well, what if I leave these lasers in here and you can use them for your announcing your basketball players at tomorrow's game? And like,
Nice.
what? Free lasers? Yeah, why not? I
Nice.
got lasers in the room. This could be a happiness thing. And
This
just
could
by
be a happiness thing.
yeah,
See?
yeah. So, and we've targeted the negatives so relentlessly for 20 years that
Wow.
now, like when we go into a room, everyone's excited that we're coming and looking forward to the experience and what we're going to build together and what they're going to remember afterwards. And just by scaling that kind of focus, I believe we're making the world a better place, one interaction at a time, and that's just so satisfying. That's worth spending time on.
Yes, yes, yes. Undoubtedly you are. When I said in the intro relentless optimism, I know that sometimes people can get like annoyed by people who are super optimistic all the time. And that's why I mentioned it's not bypassing in your case, nor is it in mine, because honestly, you have to go through the fire of really tough stuff to be able to choose optimism and joy and happiness, because you know what isn't that. And you've gotten this refinement of recognizing that. And not only that, but what you just shared was an example of how you address it. You don't play around, you know what your values are. And so you see this coach, athletic coach, and you go to him and you address the negativity. And that is where you get the result is optimism.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not just happenstance or, yay, I want everything to be great.
Totally.
Optimism.
And this is where the pilot thinking starts to come in too,
Yes,
if you want to shift
I
gears a little
totally
bit.
do. Yeah, you know what? You take it, and then I'll ask you any questions that I have. Go for it,
So
Bobby.
so over the course of running this business for 20 years, there's, like you said, there's ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster, and there's financial strain of running a business. There's the stress of making tens of thousands of people happy, and the electronics. There's a lot of ways this could go wrong, and there's a lot of moving parts. And yet we've managed to make it work, and we've managed to stay happiness oriented. And what I realized is a lot of the non bypass that you mentioned comes from a totally unexpected direction, and that is I'm a pilot. I started flying airplanes when as soon as I could afford having a credit card, so not really afford it.
It's
As
an
soon as
expensive pastime.
yeah, yeah,
We
and I
both know.
just it was just like DJing or anything else with this flow state. I wanted to understand why and how airplanes are able to fly, because that's incredible to me.
Amazing.
And I wanted to use that information, and you know this feeling well, but I wanted to be able to create flight and that magic. Uh, and the temptation to shut down when things get scary, which they do in flight training, that doesn't serve you, because if you don't make fast, good choices and prioritize really wisely,
Yeah.
people
Stalls
can
and
get hurt.
spins, anyone? Yeah.
Exactly. And so this kind of pilot thinking, this is what made this not a bypass, like you said.
Yeah.
Because if the engine fails, you don't spend time wishing it hadn't. You start
Right.
organizing the best realistic survivable landing
Yes.
immediately. And
And
I
yeah,
think
and you're
that's where that
bringing your
came from.
presence and your focus that you've already practiced in so many ways in your life to bear right then and there, because you have to train yourself how to focus. You have to train your brain how to focus on what matters,
Yeah.
right? And
And so I
piloting, definitely flying is the epitome of that, especially if you're a commercial pilot. And like you said, carry on, please. Sorry, I'm
no,
excited to hear you talk about it.
it's just been fascinating to see that that's the structured thinking that has enabled me to continue flying the airplane figuratively on my terms, whether that's running a company or designing a show or managing a team on site. We are managing a lot of moving parts, and at the end of the day, it's important that everyone gets through the journey safely.
Is that a
But
doggy in the background?
yeah, it is.
Dogs
Sorry.
are most welcome on this podcast.
Oh, good. Hey, Noodles, you hear that?
Noodles.
Come here, Nudes.
Noodles is very welcome.
Does everyone want to see Noodles real quick?
There is a video and an audio version. So for those of you who aren't watching, is it Chocolate Lab?
Black Lab.
Black
Yes.
Lab, beautiful. Noodles is in the house on the set.
Wearing the most jangly collar in the
Yeah,
whole world.
it's
I should have
beautiful.
thought of
It's all good.
that.
No worries.
Well, she's part of my daily happiness too, so
There
we'll
you
allow it.
go.
It's
Of
it's on
course.
brand. But so the pilot thinking has been an implicit part of my journey throughout, and a major source of happiness in my own life. So that
course.
on Saturday, if the weather's nice,
You're
guess
gonna
where I'll
go
be?
flying, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's going to recharge my batteries while sharpening my brain in this pilot thinking way that matters so much. And I just love that. And so my new professional focus has been managing the events team because they've gotten really good at this because we've done it so
Okay.
consistently for so
Mm-hmm.
long. They
Mm-hmm.
know how to run these things without me. And I love going to the meetings and hearing how it's going and offering some suggestions, but I don't need to push the company 12 hours a day anymore like I
That's
did in the beginning.
amazing. That's
And it,
what a founder hopes for, at some anyway, who want to go have adventures and go flying and do things, other things with their lives.
yeah. And so it's been really cool to articulate this pilot thinking and boil these lessons down to actionable ways to help people take on their own challenges. And the thing that I've enjoyed the most has been first, I loved learning these lessons and applying them myself, but to see others able to empower each other has been such an incredible thing.
Wow, meaning your team.
Yeah. So I have my general manager now manages part-time staff and interns, and I've
Okay.
met them, but I'm not involved in the
You're
hands-on
not,
management of the structures and processes that he uses to have them report back to him. But I can see the whole happiness culture
it's
has been
working, it's there, you
applied at
trust
every
them and
level.
you don't have to micromanage or do any of that because they're just like, they're in flow state. They're running as a beautiful clockwork as a team and
Yeah.
you know they can get it done.
Yeah. It's the
Okay.
best.
Okay. As much as I love talking about flying, and we're going to get back to it, don't worry.
Okay.
It's a joke, and you even have it on your website somewhere. It's like ask a
Yep.
pilot. I mean, any pilot is going to want to talk about flying. But the truth is, flying is so magical.
It is. It
In
really
fact,
is.
we're still talking about flying. I wanted to ask you something about events, but I think it really does. They really do flow into each other because the magic of flight, the magic of being up in the air, where most beings, human beings, will never be, in all honesty, right? And we talked about this before when we chatted. Even being on a commercial flight and looking out the window, I think you're probably, I know you are just like me, where I'm looking out the window at the clouds and the sky and the moon and the stars or the land below, the ocean, whatever it is, and I'm just so gobsmacked, awestruck at what an incredible feat of engineering this is.
Yes.
It's it's how do we lose sight of how magical it is, but also that we can be up in the sky like that, like
Yeah.
most in the history of humanity, most people have never done and will never do. We get this
No.
incredible privilege of being in the sky and being safe and warm with a window.
It's crazy. I just wrote an article for a magazine about the question of is it safe to use cell phones on airplanes? Why do they yell at us? Does it cause
Why do
real
they yell at
safety
us?
issues? And I was like, well, yes, there might be some interference with the radios, but why are you on your phone? Take a break. Look out the
Hey, that's
window.
the real question,
Yeah.
right? Who
Yeah.
cares if it's like, wait a second, what are you even doing? Look out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
So
wild to me that people are just, like you said, on their phones or they're reading a newspaper, they used to anyway, or just something on their laptops. And I'm always like, hey, you guys, did you notice? There's
yeah.
sky out there. There's clouds, there's thunderstorms, there's stars. Like, we're in the sky. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And when you think about the anger around flight delays, what? I'm not going to get to Kentucky for 45 minutes late after I
right.
was supposed to. This is ridiculous. It's like,
Did you
is it?
notice we just, when you landed, got across the entire continent in
Yeah,
4.5 or 5 hours?
seriously.
It's pretty amazing, and I love airports too. I will never complain about any of it. It's just
Never.
such a source of joy. I think that's what I loved about you right away.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. So I know that one of your missions is to bring that magic and passion and sense of adventure into not just your events company, but your keynote speeches, because it's something that you now are leaning even more into is this beautiful keynote that you have, or maybe you have more than one. Is there anything, and it's okay if not, because I have other questions, but is there anything you want to share about your keynote speeches? Because I know you love doing them.
Sure. I mean, I love talking about airplanes, and that's part of the fun, as you've guessed. But I just love that it's a nice way for people at any conference to get a totally new perspective on relatable challenges. So it's not about forcing them to talk about how great airplanes are, although we certainly could. But just when I picture any conference I've been to, and you look down the agenda, it seems like a lot of the names of a lot of the sessions kind of blur together. They're all exactly what you expect. Some of them are great, some of them are fine, some of them might not be the best, but it's all very similar. And I just think there's such an important thing to be done where you really totally change your perspective and look at things in a completely new way. And that's why I want to encourage people to take a step back from their reality and hop into mine for a minute, and then go back to theirs and see how they can creatively tackle some of the stuff that's been keeping them up at night.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that, because I wanted to touch on, you have an article called What Matters, and we've briefly touched on this, but you gave an example where, when you are consciously aware of what your values are and you can then focus on those, it allows you to release, as you just said, a lot of other things that don't matter. And we're coming at this from different angles, but it's kind of how you live. And this is kind of the whole point, is that marriage or weaving together of all these different concepts for this beautiful ikigai or centered alignment in the middle. And you gave an example of a soccer game, which is perfect, because you were saying it's not life and death. And yet I love it because of the strategy and the game and the goals and all of that, but also because it's fun and it allows me to get exercise and all the things. But the way you put it, and what I really loved, was I can close the tab at the end of that game, and it's not going to keep me up at night. That, what did you say? Like that shot that went over the, it didn't go in.
Yeah.
That it's not just focus, but attendant to that focus is also the capacity to let things go that don't matter.
Absolutely. And for the record, I had a soccer game last night and I scored 2 goals and they did go in.
And they did go in. And you can think about that after. You don't have to close that tab because it's fun. Sure. Right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people in today's day and age never get to see the power of their full focus.
Ooh.
Because there's just too much going on. Just to remember, I gotta feed Noodles later. I gotta give her medicine. I gotta get back to my mom. I've got to wrap my gift for somebody.
Right.
I've got to answer these emails. What do I have going on tomorrow? And then even the fun stuff, like I'm excited to watch this TV show later, or go talk to my soccer friends. But
it's, you know what? You're right. It doesn't even matter if it's a list of to-dos. It's also all the other things, but it's all in your mind and it's all running around in there, and it's just like chaos unless you are able to choose ahead of time which of those things, whether it's tasks or thoughts or ideas, are going to be important to you. And you really can't prioritize when they're all running around in there like that. What you do ahead of time is, what's really important to me is happiness.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let this go and I'm going to let that go, because honestly, it doesn't contribute. That, like you said, that Uber Eats thing might be nice, but it's not it helps you just hone in on your priorities in any given moment, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have literally 20 tabs open right now on my computer.
Oh, no,
and it's the exact same thing in our brains. We just never get to feel that moment of rebooting your browser, restarting your phone. It's like thinking about what you want to do next, and just to encourage that is so important. An interesting way I compartmentalize for myself, and this is getting into some of the data systems that I actually use regularly. I do my own personal check-in every week. I do one for my team also, which we can talk about separately, but the first one's just...
Oh, hold on a sec. I lost you there. Just a second. Okay, I just had to pause for a sec because we had a glitch. So carry on, you were saying?
So I do an exercise every week for metrics to measure how things are going. Because with emotional things, and emotion being something that matters, and happiness being an emotional thing, as an engineer, I need a way to actually track that, to figure out what's missing, what needs to change. And for me, every week I do a form, and I just use Google Forms to record this data. And my calendar will remind me, and it says, do your personal metrics. And it's just 3 questions from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. How am I doing personally? How am I doing professionally? And how am I doing physically? And just by giving 3 measurable dimensions to, wellness in a way, helps me figure out what's going great and where I might need to focus on. And if, for example, I'm crushing life professionally and personal stuff's going great, but maybe the physical's not awesome. Maybe I got to go for a long walk outside, or maybe I need to jump in another soccer game this week, or do 10 push-ups right now. I don't know, but it gives me a specific actionable way to get after this complex thing that is happiness.
Well, I love that it's so simple. It's 3 questions, and you're using the metric of happiness. See, you just bring
Yes.
it everywhere. It's really important because mine is love. Okay, obviously, I have a podcast called Leading with Love. I do love notes every day on Telegram and just send out a little love in audio version. And it's what I have made a choice to do and to be. And like you have said about your team, when you already know what you want to be, doing flows from that. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're choosing happiness, you've already decided ahead of time that no matter what shows up in your life, this is going to be your metric. Does that make me happy? Does that bring happiness to my team, to my clients, to whatever the situation might be, right? And mine is love. I will always, always choose love.
Yeah.
No matter
And
what.
that's fantastic. And it's not an easy thing to do
No.
because we all have this negativity bias.
Right.
And it's real. Every
Yeah.
morning and every night when we're trying to sleep, our brains are evolutionarily built to tell us what's wrong.
Oh,
They say.
my God, thank you for saying that. It's so,
Yeah.
because sometimes people think it's that same bypassing conversation where people sometimes think, oh, you're bypassing, spiritually bypassing because you're choosing love and you're being lovey-dovey, like a Pollyanna thing.
Yeah.
It can be with
yeah.
happiness too and optimism, but it's not.
It's
It
not.
actually takes courage and it takes intention and it takes focus and it takes sometimes choosing love and having my heart open no matter what, which is my mantra, has become my mantra. Heart open no matter what, and always out of my mind and into my heart.
Ooh, yeah.
Always, right? Where
Yeah.
you have this beautiful blend. But it is sometimes the hardest thing I have to do.
Yeah. And it's we were evolved that way for a reason. Like, of course, if we have a
Right,
predator about to
survival.
eat us, we
Yeah.
need to prioritize that
Oh,
urgently.
Joy, you're so cute. Can I pet you,
Right.
right? Cute little saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah, but with so many things fueling that negativity bias, it's like you said, it's not gonna go away unless we choose to get past it. And the one other piece of my metrics, so I've got the 3 numerical ratings, which I watch over time and I take action based
Ooh.
on what I see. It also asks one question that's just an open format words question. It says, "What's going well?" And that just
Focus.
causes me to pause and say, oh, am I playing enough soccer? Am I eating healthy? Am I seeing my family? Like, yeah, all those things are factored in later. But like, take a minute to just be like, you know what? Like, my marriage is going great and I'm grateful for that. Or it's been fun having Noodles around playing in the snow. She loves it
Yeah.
so much and it helps me
Aw.
see the snow in this like simpler
Different
way. And
way.
yeah, and just to have that pause to say, yeah, you need to get this data and act on it and schedule your fixes for any problems and listen
Right.
to the threats that are real and need your attention. But you also need to take a moment to take pride and kind of cash in on the value of the happiness that you have created already. Because if you've just moved on, what was the point of generating it in the first
Well,
place?
exactly. And it can get really quickly into that hustle and grind energy, right? But you're also
Yeah.
training your brain and your nervous system, your mind, your heart to focus on what's beautiful in your life. And you know what we focus on expands. And you're also, like you said, focusing on the now and what you've just, like, if you never enjoy it, it's like going on a vacation and coming and just looking forward to the next one because you're not present on the vacation itself. Or you're
Right.
thinking about work when you're on vacation, you think about vacation when you're at work, and you're just not present to what the blessings are in your life right now.
Yeah. I have a great thought on vacations, actually.
All right, let's have it.
So in
Me
one of my
too.
talks, I talk about something I call multipliers. And
Yes,
there,
yeah.
you've read this one?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
for those that haven't, there are good multipliers and there are bad multipliers. A bad multiplier would be me saying, okay, we're coming up on tax season. All the financial reports should be wrapping up with the accountant. I really don't like doing taxes, but I've got all these things I need to fill out and answer and coordinate and have meetings. And I got to collect all my 1099s. I got to send out W-2s. None of this is the stuff I enjoy about running a company. It all has to happen. And so I'll get an automatic alert on my calendar that says it's time to deal with taxes. Now, what am I probably going to do? I'm going to say, well, I could talk to Shauna on this interview. I could get ready for that. I could do this other soccer thing I'm excited about. I'm going to stack some good stuff now, and I'm going to put off the tax thing. It doesn't really need to happen this week. Let's see. I got a slot next Tuesday. I'll bring this back to my inbox on Tuesday. And then what happens next Tuesday? Do I really need taxes done Tuesday? No, I could probably do this
Right. So you
Thursday. And so now,
procrastinate.
yeah. And so, assuming I've done them eventually, which I will, they've hit me negatively more than once.
Right.
And I've given them power, and I've given them way more attention than they deserved in a negative way. And that's not good. And easier said than done, of course. But if the tax reminder came up at the exact time that I knew I needed to do it, and I knew I was capable of doing it, and I knew I had the information I needed to do it, and I just did it, and then I crossed it off, my life would be better. The same taxes would have gotten done.
What an incredible point. It's so simple, but it's such an incredible point for focus, but also what you said about it hits you several times. The negative impact of thinking about it and worrying about it, where if you just set something and trusted yourself that you'd have the resources that you need when it's time, then it frees up this bandwidth and resources, all resources, mental, emotional, time, whatever it is, focus, to do all the other things instead of worry about it. Oh, it's like 1,000 paper cuts on one subject.
Yep. And we do it all the time. We don't even realize we're doing it. But the good news is we can create
There's a flip side.
positive multipliers.
Yeah.
And we can do that with all the time we've freed up to not do taxes. And that is plan that vacation as early as you can. Or my mom always tells me you should always have a bottle of champagne in the fridge, and you should always know what the next thing you're looking forward to is.
That's beautiful.
It's such good advice. And if you've got an amazing vacation 6 months out, it'll give you a little emotional boost over and over again, every day, every night, every time you think about it.
So positive stacking of it's like whatever the opposite is of 1,000 paper cuts. Like 1,000 little glimmers of joy or sparkles or like joyful moments that warm your heart and your mind, looking forward to something beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that, because both the negative and the positive, we have to do the taxes.
Right.
We hopefully get to go on that vacation, but what happens in between can be so different based on how we let those multipliers come at us.
Multipliers. I love it. Right. Exactly. So again, conscious choice and focus and intention. Like, what are we letting our mind, if it's going to ruminate or if it's going to, touch on a subject many times, shouldn't we be choosing it? Our mind is supposed to be a tool.
Yes.
Not run the show, not be the master.
We shouldn't be the victim of our own reality.
Oh, right. Right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. I have a couple more questions. I know we're probably nearing our time, but I wanted to ask you about, we talked before now about gracious yeses and gracious nos. And I'm kind of weaving everything together in how you show up, whether you say yes or no to a speaking engagement, whether your team says yes or no to an event. And you and I had a little chat about, let's say someone comes to you. It's all related. This is all related. It's about focus and your values and all the things, and asks you to run an event, host an event, run an event for them. But there several things I'm assuming could be a misalignment or a mismatch. They don't have the budget. They don't have the same ethos or, commitment to happiness and joy for the attendees that you guys have, that you would bring to it, or what they want doesn't align with what would be, with your very deep and wide experience, would make for a great event. So you've learned how to say very gracious yeses or gracious nos, right? And that's hard when you're in business sometimes. You got to learn that skill. That's a skill. No, thank you. It's just not for us. And then the yeses are hell yeses. Pardon my English, right? But they are, because that's like what we said here. This has to be a yes for both of us, or we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that for our wonderful audience?
Very easily. I had a no today because somebody said, hey, I've got a client for this Saturday in April when everybody's busy in the concert industry. The budget's not great. I'm having trouble finding somebody. Can we talk about it today? And I knew right away that was not going to pan out. I have 3 different events. My team's in 3 different states already, stretched thin. for amazing events, and I just don't have the capacity to take it on. And the thing I wanted to emphasize to this person was, first off, thank you for thinking of me for this. Yes, this is something I generally love to do and am very capable of doing well. And I appreciate that I'm on your mind for this because that's a win. So thank you. But the last thing I want to do is deliver your client anything other than this awesome reputation that
Right.
we've worked so hard to build by being so intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not be a win if I said, we will make it happen and we'll survive, because then your client gets a party that's not the greatest event we've ever done
Mm-hmm.
because we're doing 3 other ones that day. It's not what they asked for. You're not looking great for recommending us because we weren't
Right.
showing up properly for that. My team's now stretched between 4 shows instead of 3. They're not going to be sustainably happy, and their Tuesday will
Right.
probably be worse. And the other shows we've already committed to will take a hit
That's true.
because
Yeah,
of
they won't get your
limitation of,
full. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and your reputation of your business suffers. There's just so many negative impacts of saying a no that's lukewarm,
yeah,
that isn't, or a yes, sorry, that's lukewarm.
right. And I think to say no, like, obviously, if you could say yes to all the right things all the time, it would be great. But by being intentional with the no's, when I do say yes to that same person who asked,
Yeah.
they're going to hear Bobby's going to crush this,
Yeah, it's going to be
which they should.
magic. It's going to be legendary. That's the word. And that's something to live up to. You
Yes.
curate, I would say, legendary events. Like that's
Yeah.
not a small thing. Magic, legendary connection that what we talked about before too is this alive feeling, right? The connection that the people have with the music, with each other. It's a feeling, it's an intangible, and it's what we're all after, whether it's the end of a sports game or a movie, that feeling of being wildly alive.
Yeah.
That's
It's
how
that.
I envision you creating events.
Yeah. And I think if I had to define that legendary feeling in the context of a concert experience,
Uh-huh.
it's feeling like I'm getting everything I need and everything I could ever want from the reality I'm in right now. I'm not at all, I have no energy to give the future or the past or my inbox or the notifications. I am,
Oh, I love it. It's just right here, right now. That's
yeah,
that's that's where life force can flow through. To me, that's being
yes,
in a heart state. You're bringing the mind to it, which I love because
yeah,
it's just this perfect blend. That's the sweet spot right there.
yeah.
If you
And,
are
and,
so in joy in the moment, everything else
and it,
disappears.
and it's so hard to find that as a person these days, and it's so hard to create that as an events professional. But when it happens, it's sacred because people don't get to feel like that ever anymore.
Sacred is such a beautiful word. You're creating these sacred memories and experiences for people, and you're giving them a touch point of what that feels like so
Yeah,
they can take it with them. And that's to me how we co-create the world we want to live in,
absolutely.
is bringing those things with skill, like you said,
Yeah,
challenge and skill to the forefront, and actually like hitting it out of the park, knocking it out of the park. That's so great. I love it.
yeah. And
I
you
love it.
mentioned you mentioned earlier, getting through COVID as an events company, which
Uh-huh.
was definitely a challenge. And if we were a concert production company, we wouldn't have. Most of them didn't. But we're a happiness company, and happiness was in even more demand during that crazy time.
Oh, wow.
And so we
Wow.
found ourselves very relevant, and that was important. And when we talk about some of these sacred moments and the importance of coming together and experiencing a single shared reality together,
Hmm.
uh, being being able to focus on that as the objective, even with the crazy challenges that we were facing, was interesting. And I have some core memories of my own of building a drive-in movie type setup outside in Connecticut for hundreds of
Whoa.
people to see. And everyone was spaced out on the grass, 20 feet away from each
Oh
other
my
with
gosh.
masks on. But,
Ay, ay,
and of
ay.
course it was scary and weird and different, but I
And
also looked up and
amazing.
I was like, I'm going to always remember like watching this movie, which was the Jackie Robinson movie. And I thought of that when you said hit it out of the park.
Wow. Look at
And
that.
I'm under the
Synchronicity.
stars in Connecticut, and people are getting to do something together. Yes, it's weird, and yes, it's different, but it's happening, and it's important.
So
And
important.
Yeah. So
More important
to
than ever during those lockdowns. That's such a beautiful thing that you were curating happiness and you were finding ways, given the constraints, which were significant, to create that connectedness, that
yeah,
interconnectedness, and that magic when we all needed it so much.
so much. What a strange time that was.
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, it's been a weird few years. We all know
Uh,
it.
uh-huh.
But I mean, we're very blessed to now have, just so much more opportunity, and our imaginations can run wild, and I love that, and I love that you're still choosing to just, do what lights you up more and more. I think you are. I mean, we both are.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me just check my notes here because I feel like I
Sure.
had. I wanted to talk about flying a little more, but I'm sure you get to talk about that a
Whatever you want.
lot. Yeah, exactly. I think the two things that I would want to end with is when you mentioned, so here's another thing about when you were a little kid, okay?
Hmm.
You
Okay.
talked about you loved so many things. You were curious. Curiosity is one of the fundamental things I think about you. It's one of your traits, which
Hmm.
I totally get. And that's kind of that aliveness too is, ooh, what's this? Oh, what's that? What, you're curious. And I was like that
Yeah.
as a kid too. And sometimes you can get in trouble for being that way.
Hmm.
And it's amazing that you've come to such a point of focus in your life. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because that curiosity allowed you to taste a lot of things. It allowed you to indulge yourself in learning about technical stuff and adventure and passion, and as you grew into flying and all of these things. And you brought up something in your work called stacking,
Mm-hmm.
which speaking of stacking, but a different meaning of the word now, which
Yeah.
I love because it speaks to creating or curating a career or what you do in the world, how you show up, that actually brings in and weaves in so many of the things that you do love, and you're doing that so beautifully. That I would
Thank you
love for
so
you
much.
to tell our audience about the concept of stacking for anybody who has a lot of interest and thinks there's something wrong with them because they can't pick something.
Of course, and thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, when I was younger, I was excited to do everything. I remember I wanted to play hacky sack with one group of kids during lunch, and I wanted to program the light board after school, and I needed to get to school early to be on the morning news show, and I wanted to be a soccer captain and an AP calculus person, and it was great. And fast forward 30 years now, if I could still do that much and survive and work and pay the rent, I would. It would be great. But I'm tired. I can't there's not enough
Yeah.
hours in the day to live the life I need to lead with that
We're not little
range
kids
of
with no
activities.
responsibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think part of the development of this stacking mentality was by necessity because I could see there was no way to sustainably keep advancing at everything. And I never wanted to be a jack of all trades. I didn't want to
It wasn't that.
casually play
No.
soccer. I wanted to win the state tournament with my team as the captain.
Okay.
Lofty goals, but important ones. And it's good to aim high and it's good to get better at the things you care about. But sooner or later you've got to pick some lanes and decide what you can let go of.
Yeah.
And that's tough if you love a lot of things. I
Yes.
still would love to hacky sack
Yeah.
right now, but I don't have time, and I might this weekend, who knows.
Yes, you
But
might on Saturday.
yes,
But
but
stacking is such a beautiful concept because you can bring in, a few things. So carry on,
yes.
please.
And so this is why, flying an airplane or DJing are so wonderful to me because they put me in that flow state. I'm getting the science, I'm getting the curiosity, I'm getting the button pushing, I'm learning how do I need to word this on the radio to ask what I need for? How do I announce something on the microphone to this crowd to give them the information they need to stay with me happiness wise? How do I need to understand this music so I know it'll sound good when I play these two parts together? It's all of the technical stuff I love and all of the art and all of the creative. And if I make a business out of it, it's the challenge and adventure
Yes.
of entrepreneurship. And it's a way to do a lot of the things you're curious about and interested in developing simultaneously and
Beautiful.
still clock out and have enough time to take a deep breath and take care of yourself and go to sleep.
Right. And be nourished and, yeah, replenished with sleep and family time and like the quiet times that you build in, like this coming Saturday. And I
Yeah.
love that because I was a kid like that too. So interested in so many things. And I still have that curiosity. I still have that. It's kind of like zigzagging or pinballing all over the place or ping
Yeah.
ponging or however you want to say it. But I actually read a
What's
book. Go ahead.
what's the best example of stacking for you?
I think that honestly, I live my whole life like that now. And
Okay.
I heard someone say once, I can't remember who it was, but they said, everyone's seeking balance, but you actually can't have balance. You can't have everything you want at one time. You can really focus on one thing and
Yeah.
get really good at it. You can focus on another, but you're never going to have that perfect balance. And so stacking to me is maybe looking at a bigger picture, like a 6-month picture or a year. Did I get to spend time in Hawaii this past year? Did I get to spend time with my family? Or, even if I'm talking about the coming year, did I get to really focus on work? Because I too like to focus on one thing at a time. So I would
Mhm.
say I would use that concept in my life
I
versus
love
in a
that.
career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I bringing in all the elements that nourish me and light me up, and also provide structure to that flow,
Hmm.
the work to the play,
Yeah.
even if you could say the masculine to the feminine, and flying is that sweet spot too, which is what we totally both
Absolutely.
agree on, right? Because you've got the structure, you've got the tech, you've got the focus, but you have the joy and the excitement, and
Yeah.
um, so there's lots of ways that I would say. Thank you for asking.
I love that. And I love the idea of kind of work life integration rather than
Hmm.
balance, because you are one person, you've got one mind and one stream of focus to direct continuously. And it doesn't matter if you need to shift gears from work to personal, you're still the same person.
Right.
And so it's interesting to
Right.
think about how to be a unified person that's productive and happy and living the purpose you want
That's
sustainably.
amazing.
Yeah.
Shifting gears is a really great, actually, metaphor or analogy, because if I'm a loving being, I'm bringing that to my clients, and I actually let go of many, many clients over the years who we just weren't super aligned. So it's that gracious no, and kept
Hmm.
only the people to work with for pure work that I love and who love me, and we appreciate each other and we support each other, and they know I'm always going to have their back. And so it's a yes, again, a yes for all of us or both of us, right? And then
Yes,
that allows, like, a lot of those no's allow for the beautiful yeses. And then that means
absolutely.
my work is nourishing and it's supporting myself and my family. And then I give my clients, like, if you're working with me in any capacity, I am all in. If
Yeah.
that's what you
Wh-
want, then I'm all
Yeah.
yours,
When I say
until,
yes, it
yeah.
means something. Yeah.
Exactly. And then in my family time, I'm with them. And when I'm traveling, I can be there and not worried about, because I have a team like you do. So I know that they have my back because I love them too. And we're not
Yeah.
just colleagues. And I know that we can bring love to the workplace because I do it. And you can bring happiness to the workplace. And it impacts us as humans because we're humans first.
Yeah.
And
And
so, like you said, go ahead.
the work we do matters and the way we do it matters even more.
Exactly so. Exactly
Yeah.
so. Yeah, who we are, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're authentic and you're really bringing yourself and your full game to everything you do, you're showing up as the same person. There's no facade that you have at work. At least that's the way it is for me.
Yeah.
You
And when you
know?
say authentic, there are four tenets of a great event. And I call it rave analysis. A great event has to be relevant, authentic, valuable, and emotional.
Oh, beautiful. What
And
a
just like
different way to approach event planning.
Yeah, and just like the way my personal metrics, personal, physical, professional, it
Right.
gives me a way to look at an event and say, I just attended a concert and it was okay but not great. Okay,
What was
why?
missing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it was way
emotional.
too expensive, or there was no emotional flow to it. And I remember going to some shows that were really technical, but I felt like as the audience member, I was just a passive participant. It didn't matter that I was there to
It
that
wasn't
person.
engaging.
Yeah, and
It
so
was just
that
it was coming at you instead of
exactly.
you being like such an integral part of the experience.
Yeah, yeah, and I think to be able to attack things from dimensions like that helps us build a bigger
Woohoo!
bigger whole.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I love it all. I think I'm pretty much, actually, no, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
And it again has to do with weaving together your values and what you do. So when you're flying, just to use an example from your life, I
Hmm.
know that we touched on this as well, that flying is really expensive as a
Yeah.
hobby. right? It's not
Yes.
cheap to rent the airplane and to stay current, meaning your skills are top notch and up to speed, pun
Mhm.
intended. And so one of the ways that you combined your passion with impact and you get to fly more is that you volunteer with Angel Flight and other such foundations and organizations that do charity work. And so you get to fly
Yeah.
more, right? And you're not getting paid for it, but you're getting impact. You're getting to be happier, contribute to the happiness of others, fly. It's like,
Yeah.
it's that beautiful combination. So did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's another great multiplier.
Yeah.
I would be happy to fly by myself for an hour. It's great, and it would be some of the most fulfilling flow state hours of my day.
Yeah.
But if I can put somebody in the other seat that really needs a ride or would really love this or needs to get somewhere, that's free value for the world because it
Mm-hmm.
costs me nothing monetarily and it only makes my experience better. And it creates a whole new chunk of positivity for somebody else. And
Beautiful.
that's a great way to share it. The organization I've done the most recent work with is called Above the Clouds, and it's just to take underprivileged children that are facing adversity in some way, and it basically just identifies people that could use a boost and are
Oh,
curious about airplanes. And you sit down with them for a little while, and you talk about how planes work and where they want to go. And you go and around here, I'll fly them over the Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play, and we'll say, "Oh, hey, look, you can see them practicing down there." And it just it just removes them from their stressful life and gives them a totally different
wow.
experience. And it's again, it clears their tabs too. You know, I got to
Yeah.
fly and give that day, and they got to just put a pause on whatever was stressing them out that day and just take a break from that reality and hop into mine for a minute, and to be able to give that gift in a way that again costs nothing, and it's just adding a layer of value for somebody else on top of one that already exists. That's the kind of, transaction that if we can do that more and more, makes
Mm-hmm.
a real difference for the world.
Yeah, 2 + 2 = infinity. That's so
That's right.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I know there's a lot of organizations. One of the ones that I love here is that, taking people to hospital trips. I mean, just like
Yeah.
flying them places. There's so many things you can do in any niche, in any industry. There's always a way to enhance your own joy by serving somebody else. And that gift that you're giving to those kids, each one of them, I have no doubt there are ripple effects in terms of them just having access to joy that they didn't have before, and
Yeah.
knowing what that feels like, that excitement and that joy. Like, you don't know those timelines that you have changed,
Yeah,
and
it's
you'll
true.
never know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to reflect on that. And with one last thought, uh, when you define success, we need to think about what that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
what we're hustling for, because we
Yeah.
know what we need to achieve later. Uh, I would define success as how much your day in reality looks like your perfect day.
Ugh.
And
Yes.
so, in my perfect day, I would definitely go on an airplane ride, and I would definitely take someone who cares along for the journey. And so to be able to choose to do that as a way to give back is literally a step towards success by that definition.
And I love that we really all should define success, define productivity, define what those things mean to us instead of going by anybody else's definition, no matter who it might be. I love that you do that, and I thank you for sharing it. I thank you for doing it. It's really beautiful, and it's nice to know that you're out there doing that. I'll just end with is there anything else you'd like people to know? Where to find you? What do you
If
want to
anybody
share?
wants to, yeah, no, come find me at Pilot Thinking on Instagram, or check out the website thinklikeapilot.com. I am trying to do this speaking stuff more professionally, so if
Love it.
anyone's company or organization or team ever needs a really unique talk or keynote, please do reach out. I'd love to chat about it and make it happen.
Incredible. I love that. I mean, from the accolades and testimonials you have, I'm sure your speech is fantastic. I've heard, many parts of it now, and I'm really excited to see what unfolds for you. And I'm grateful to know you, grateful that you were here. Thank you for sharing your very valuable time with us today.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's both of our pleasure, I'm sure. And as you would say, onward and upward. And I'm just going to run the little outro, and then I'll be right with you.
Okay.
Thank you. So great. I love it. Thanks, Bobby.
Of course.
Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoyed this episode and it helped you open your heart, feel inspired, and know that we are all connected. Please subscribe and share so this work can touch more people. This is how we co-create the world we want to live in. Thank you so much again for joining us, and talk to you next time.